This is Penn Woods interviewing for the Oklahoma Living Legends. We're in Alva, Oklahoma in October 1972, and I'm visiting with Mrs. I.T. Strickland. I'm going to spell the name. It's Strickland. Her maiden name was Ottie, Ottie, Arndt, Arndt, Strickland. She lives in Alva, Oklahoma, and her family came here about 1898. Is that correct?
Yes, in Alva.
Do you remember this trip?
Oh yes, I've got it here.
Why don't you tell us about it? You can tell about it. You can read about it. If you read, I'll be stopping in asking questions as we go along. But you can go either way.
I wish you would, because I can get my breath.
That's right. We just go any way, and we can turn it off when we want.
Well, shall I start?
Sure.
Why we came to Oklahoma. In October of the year of 1894, the Valentine Arndt family, consisting of father, mother, 4 brothers, and myself, then a girl of 13 years of age, were living at Trenton, Nebraska, a small town on the Republican River. I attended school there, and my father and brothers, old enough to work, were employed in making brick for new buildings going up. As time went by, my father contracted a large kill of brick for a herd of nice, slick, unbroken horses, 65 in all. My father's plan was to drive them back to our old original home at Liverpool, Pennsylvania, where we came from only 2 years before. Any questions?
No, go ahead.
Well, we started with our herd of horses from Nebraska in September, and we traveled in a covered wagon. My sister and her family in another covered wagon. My brothers horseback to look after the horses. All went well for a few days. Then one of our herd got footsore and could not travel. That put a question to my father as to what to do with this fine-looking horse. And as we passed by a nice-looking farm, the farmer was out admiring our herd. Well, my father stopped the wagon and talked to him as the sore-footed horse struggled to keep up with the herd. In the conversation with the farmer, my father offered the sore-footed horse to him free if he would take it into his pasture. Well, the farmer gladly accepted the deal, and Slipper, as we called her, was turned into the farmer's nice green pasture. We children often spoke of Slipper and wondered how she was faring, but I'm sure she fared well, as horses was a fancy price. We called her Slipper because her feet were worn off so bad.
Tell us a little about a covered wagon. What is it like to ride in a covered wagon?
Oh, it's nice. It's nice.
How many miles could you make in a day?
I don't know. I just don't know, but not too far. Not too far.
Do you know how long it took you to get from, was it Nebraska?
Yeah, we started up there toward the last of September, and we got down here October the 4th on the claim.
Now this was in 1898. This was in 1898.
No.
1893
No.
was the Cherokee's trip.
This was in 1894.
1894.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
1894. We continued on our route east to near Omaha, Nebraska. And one day, as my father and brother stopped to water the herd at a big public water tank in the town, an old man came walking up with the use of a cane. My father and he soon struck up a conversation, and the old man said, Oh, you'll never get those horses down to Oklahoma or to Pennsylvania. They will all get footsore and can't travel. Well, Father thought of the slipper and knew what the old man said was true. The old man continued the conversation with, "Now, I'll tell you what I would do if I would be in your place. I'd go south to this new country called Oklahoma and get me a farm. Everyone over 21 years of age can get 160 acres by filing at it. Now, all these big boys could get a farm." And the old man hobbled away. Well, that was too much for my father, and he consulted with my brothers and mother, and we turned south to Oklahoma in place of going east to Pennsylvania as intended, all because an old man dared to speak his mind. When the herd was through drinking, we turned our faces south to Oklahoma, and as we neared Alva, we saw the railroad track that had just been put in from the north. And we stopped a few minutes at Virgil. Now it's called Capri. Did you know it? You'll learn something, won't you? We camped north of Alva along the river in a grove of trees, and it rained several days. My brothers had quite a time in keeping the horses off the Santa Fe railroad track. And one day, several of the horses were on the track, and no matter how hard my brothers tried, the horses kept right on down in front of the engine. 3 riders could not get them off, and the engineer was kind enough to slow the train down until my brothers got them off. After the 3 days' rain ceased, my father came into town and found a real estate dealer named Lewis, and he located us 18 miles west of Alpha, way out in the sticks, nobody out there, where pasture was good for the herd. There were only 2 families within a radius of many miles. Well, on our claim was a part dugout and log with a dirt roof. It was at least a shelter, and my mother, like all good early day wives, made the best of it, and we could call it home. However, it had plenty of centipedes, and we all became real marksmen in killing them, and no one of our family was stung. My mother had a big stack of old newspapers she had saved in Nebraska containing the sermon of Reverend Talmadge, and she papered our dugout with them. It was a great improvement compared with the bare logs, and too, we could hear the centipedes and knew exactly where to jab for them. One night we heard one crawling near Father and Mother's bed, and as my parents always kept the lamp turned low at night, we began to move around quite lively and in some way handled the bedding so that we put the light out, and we were in the dark with the centipede. We lost no time in getting a match and lighting the lamp again, and we sure had the centipede, one less to deal with. Now, the Oklahoma law was that you had to file on your claim and live on it 6 months to prove it up, as they called it. That consisted of coming to the land office here at Alva, filing on it, giving $14, and then live on it 6 months. So, in time, we moved 1 mile east to my brother Joe's claim. My fathers and brothers built a small 1-room log house there, and we lived for some time. While living there one night, a bunch of wolves got into our horse corral, and the herd of horses stampeded, broke down the fence, and we could hear them as they ran out on the prairie, running for their lives, for the bunch of wolves were chasing them. The next morning early, my brothers were out looking for them and found our little pet colt that we called Nancy dead, with a muscle in the back leg bitten in two and her body half devoured. She, being little, could not keep up with her mother and the others, and the wolves got her. We had our hardships, but we trusted the Lord for guidance. We all had good health, and lucky we did, for there was no doctor within 18 or 20 miles, and no doctor was anxious to drive his horse and buggy from Alva into the country that far. As to our food, we never went hungry. We gathered wild grapes and plums, and my mother would cook the plums and remove the seeds and spread that mixture on a cloth and let the sun dry it out. It got tough as leather. It's really called plum leather. When dry, she would roll it up in a nice roll, paper and all, and put several more layers of paper on it and a string around it, roll it, and hang it high. Now, we tied ours to our ridge log to keep it from dust and insects. Talking about ridge log, my brother and father had 5 guns strapped to the ridge log. Then, when we wanted plum butter, she would soak the plum leather, cook and add sugar, and reheat, and this on good homemade bread or biscuits was delicious. Now, deers were seen quite often in our part of the country. One day, my younger brother David and a neighbor boy were riding around over the prairie and spied an open well about 8 to 10 feet deep. Some settler had dug it and left after failing to strike water. And like all boys, David and his Elmer inspected the well and found a young deer down in it. It evidently had fallen in. The boys took their lariat rope and dropped it down over the deer's head and pulled it to the top of the well with the help of the pony and struck it in the head with their hammer. 2 proud boys brought the deer home dressed, and my mother cooked it. I can say it tasted real good. Then a few weeks later, several hunters came by, and they had killed a black bear nearby. They asked to stay all night and asked my mother to cook some of their bear meat for supper, and she did. And I must say again, it wasn't bad at all. It tasted like fresh pork. The men said they were early settlers and lived southwest of Alva. Are you tired?
Did you ever see any bear? Did you ever see any live bear around here?
Huh?
Did you ever see any live bear around here?
I never saw any live ones. I just saw this one they caught. No, lots of wolves and lions, but I didn't see the bear.
Excuse me.
Now let's see. I read that.
Yes, sir.
Are you tired?
No, I was going to have you go on through, and then I thought I might have some questions we would go on there.
Close to us was a family that owned a sorghum mill. And
What is that family again? What family?
Well, their name was Parker.
Parker.
Now, I didn't know whether to name people's names or not.
Yes, well, I think we should, because it's part of our history.
Parker. They owned a sorghum mill, and we helped to make sorghum from the green cane Did you ever see Salt and Navy?
No.
Well, they just squeeze that juice out and cook it and cook it and cook it and get some. This was quite an addition to the early settlers' food supply. As years went by, more families moved in, and we had a 3-month school. And our first teacher was Mr. Frank Parks. He was a good teacher, and we all liked him. My father took pride in his crops, but for several years, our nice corn crop would wilt and dry on account of the hot winds. My brother David, who was 4 years younger than I, and I were instructed to keep the weeds cut down. And the cornfield looked like a garden. It really did. And by the way, my brother D.D. Art is still living, now 88 years old, and he resides on West Flint here in Alva. After much discouragement, my father sold the farm, and we moved into Alva, and he and my brother started a brickyard in the northeast part of town. Many of the early day buildings yet standing are made from his brick. We settled down, and I attended the Northwestern Normal School, now the Northwestern State College, and I graduated in 1902, after which I taught school. My sister and husband that was with us on the trip did not care for Oklahoma, and they sold their wagon and team and bought tickets for Pennsylvania. Now, later in life, in teaching school, I met and married Mr. I.T. Strickland. He made the run into the Strip September the 16th, 1893, horseback. He crossed the Salt Fork River just west of where Ashley now stands. He made it in 1 hour and 35 minutes. He secured a claim 7 miles east of Alva in Alfalfa County. He was proud of his farm and retained it as long as he lived.
Do you live on the farm now? Where do you live now?
I live here in town.
In town.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you describe, we just talk, not necessarily in sequence, but you were in the school in its early days.
I was in when they was down there at the church.
Where did the school meet? Where did the school meet at that time? Where was the college?
The college was held in the Friends Church, what's now Friends Church.
Is the building still there?
Mm-hmm.
What's it used for now? Friends Church?
Yeah, the Friends Church.
Mm-hmm. It was built for the college, though, originally, is that right?
The what?
Was it built originally for a college and then converted to the church?
Oh, no, it was a church.
It was a church then?
Well, we used that until the college was built.
How many students were in the college at that time?
I'd imagine 60, 70.
Were you in the first graduating class?
No, I graduated in 1902. Must have been about second class.
Second class.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen the college grow then over the years considerably.
Yes.
What was the college like? What was attending college like at that time?
It is wonderful. It was wonderful. And the pupils, students that came dressed up like they were going to church.
What were some of the activities you had in college?
Well, we had 2 debating teams, and we had 2 halls upstairs, and one debating team, each debating team had their own hall, and every 2 weeks we would have a debate.
Did you debate other schools any?
Out of school?
Other schools, other colleges?
Oh, no.
Did they have any athletics at that time?
Yes, yes, they
What?
had football.
Who did they play?
They had football and basketball.
Who did they play against?
Well, I don't know, but probably just the surrounding schools.
Like Tonkawa maybe, or
Oh, yes, or Captain or Tacoma or somewhere.
what did your major in school?
What?
What did you major in school?
Well, I trained to be a teacher.
What did you teach?
I just taught the ordinary list of studies.
You taught in what level? Grade school or?
No, I taught in practice school first in the college.
Oh.
You had to have practice teaching a year. So I took a year of the practice teaching. And then I got near school 7 miles east of Alpha, where I met my husband. He was on the school board.
Well, what were you teaching there at that school? What courses were you teaching there?
In country?
Yes.
Oh, all nine grades.
Just different the whole round.
Yeah.
How large was that school?
Oh, we had about 25. Some of them way bigger than me.
In other words, you had the whole range of grades
Yes,
in one
I
class.
had the whole range from ABCs to the highest.
It must be difficult to teach a class that is there's that much diversification. How are you able to give the attention to each of the different courses? Is that pretty difficult?
Well, you can adapt yourself to it. You've got to keep posted on algebra and geometry and those higher studies. And you've got to understand how to teach the little one ABC.
Did you teach any after you were married?
No, I didn't.
You didn't after that?
No, I did not. We had 4 children. I had all I could have.
You had enough to teach there, didn't you? In going to school, in the grade school, you came here at about the age of 13, you said, didn't you? So
what?
Did you come here about the age of 13, did you say, when you came?
We was 13 when we landed on the claim. Then we stayed there, you see, several years.
Well, did you attend, what sort of public schools did they have below the college level when you first came here?
Oh, they just had these ordinary grade schools
Country
here.
schools? And so you attended a country school somewhat similar to the one you taught?
Yes, I attended the country school at Whitehorse. And then I came to college.
In your teaching, do you recall any pupils that you had who may have played any role in the history or area of Alva or anything like that? Did you taught not too many years, I recognize, but did you have any pupils that have taken a lead in any part in Alva or the state or anything?
I don't know of any that is taking
Do you
a
recall any of
lead
them?
in they've all been successful farmers and businessmen.
Why don't you tell a little about the brick plant? I'm sure that the methods of making bricks, I mean, basic methods may be similar, but the procedure, I'm sure, is different. Talk about how your father and brother ran the brick plant. How were the bricks made?
Yes, and I might add that I worked on the brickyard myself.
Good. So, what did you do? How did you make the bricks?
The first thing you do, you go to a bank and see if it has clay in it. And if it has clay, you can make brick. And then you dig a big hole, a large hole, and you fill it full of this yellow clay. and you have a long pole and a horse hitched on the end of it, and it grinds it in a homemade mill, wooden. They call it a hopper. It's something like a hopper. And this horse just goes round and round and round and grinds that. Then there's an opening at the bottom of this big box, and the clay comes out all mixed, just like nice dough. And then you have a man standing there with a table about the size of this one, and he takes it, and that's the way he does. He comes down, and he gets a piece, and he rolls it like a woman does a loaf of bread, and he puts it in the mold. Now, the mold is a thing with 3-length brick. It'll take 3 bricks. And he puts it in there, and then he has a bowl with a wire on, and he pulls it across, and he takes the top of that mud off. Then you're ready to take them out to the floor. You have your floor just nice, just awful nice and level. You take them out to the floor, and you put your mold down, and you dump your 3 brick, and you press them with the bottom of it, and you go back to the table, and you're ready for 3 more.
You make bricks 3 at a time?
Yeah.
Well.
And then you put them in a kiln. When they get dry, you let them get thoroughly dry. And when they're dry, you put them in a kiln, something like a building. You have to put them in just so. And then when you got that kiln full, there's arches through there. There's 3 or 4 arches through there that you can see clear through. Now you put fire in there, and then you close those arches up, and you let that fire burn for about 3-4 days, and your brick is red.
What kind of fire? What do you burn? What do you feel the fire?
Just wood.
Wood.
Yeah, just wood.
How many, at this rate, this is a slow process, you know, in the earlier days, how many brick would you be able to produce, say, in a week?
In a day?
In a day, let's say.
5,000.
5,000 bricks, that's not bad, is it?
If my father always thought 5,000 was a good day's work. Yeah.
You say some buildings are still standing with your father's brick?
Yeah.
Did he have some brick in those earlier days had an emblem in the mold? Did yours that identified it?
No.
It did not?
No, he did not.
Did he make tile or any other thing besides brick?
No, he worked some in the cement blocks, but not too much. He was really a brick maker.
How long did this brick plant operate? When did it close down?
When did it close down?
Yes.
Well, they got the machines, see, and they could make 14,000 and 15,000 a day. Well, then a man that could only make 5,000, see,
couldn't compete.
No, he couldn't compete.
So about when was it that it closed?
Well, in Maryland, we were in Maryland a while, and that was the first machine I ever saw, and that was in '89.
How long did your father stay in the brick business?
All his life.
All his life. Is this business still operating, or did it go out of business after he died?
Well, they stopped making the hand. They couldn't compete with the machine.
Yes. Now, your brother was also in that business. Is that right?
All my brothers were brick makers.
Did they stay in it after your father died, or did they go into something else?
No. Well, they had farms, see. They just took care of their farms.
Stay with the farms. In Alva, over the years, have you participated in any organizations? This could be a church organization or a civic or a women's organization or anything like that. Have you been a part of any of these?
Well, I just belong to the Bible Study Club of the New Era Club.
Bible Study Club and the New Era Club.
New Era Club.
I see. Which church is
It's made up of all of them.
Oh, all of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've got 10 people in there from all the churches.
Well, how old is this club?
I think it was about 1908.
Mm-hmm. Were you one of the original members?
No, I wasn't the original. I didn't join until 1935.
Oh, I see.
No, I'll tell you who originated was the president's wife, the college Conway. Conway was the second president, and Mrs. Conway, his wife, organized this in 1908.
Who was the first president of the college when you were?
President Ament. He was a wonderful man.
Ament.
In 1908.
Who was the first president of the college when you were?
President Ament. He was a wonderful man.
Ament.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about him.
James E. Ament.
James Ament.
Well, he was just an average-sized man, very dressy, very dressy. He had to tell us every morning how he would get up, and he had to take his bath. And us children come in from the country, and he'd tell us how he got up at a certain time, and he took his bath at a certain time, and he always kept himself immaculate. He just looked like he was out of a fashion book all the time, and he was nice looking.
How long was he president?
I think he's only president 2 years. I think so.
And then the second president's name
was Conway.
Tell us about, is it Mr. or Dr. Conway?
Now, I didn't know Mr. Conway, you see, because I graduated under Ament.
Oh, I see.
See, I knew Mr. Conway when I'd seen him, and I knew his wife well.
Mm-hmm.
But I was busy teaching, you see, raising my family, you see.
Who are some of the people in Alva that, in your very early days, who were the leaders of the community in your earliest days that you remember?
Well, J.W. Munford was one. He had the drugstore, mm-hmm. and he also had the books for the college. Mm-hmm. And then Bradbury, on the south side, he had a bookstore. And S.B. Scher had a big grocery, and he always had coffee pot on top of his big stove. And I think every few days he'd put a little coffee in, and the farmer would come in and sit in his store and eat his lunch, and he could drink as much coffee as he wanted. Mm-hmm. He was a fine fellow. And then there was Andy and Bert Deagle. Now, they were brothers, and they had a drugstore on the north side. They were awfully nice, too.
What were some of the earliest businesses in Alva?
The what?
Earliest businesses, say the first bank in Alva.
They were. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Montford had the drugstore.
Mm-hmm. And what about department store? What was the first department store you had?
I don't know. I just would Jets be a department store?
Might be, yes. You were here during the period of World War One. Tell about what it was like during that period around.
Well, of course, people were very much enthused about it and patriotic, did what they could. If they could help by saving a few dollars, they'd do it.
What about during the Depression period here? How badly did it hit Alva?
That Depression period is something.
Tell what it was like.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
All right.
Now, we had our farm, and we had cattle, and we had chickens, everything that goes with a farm. But we didn't have money. And I had 4 cents. And lard was 4 cents a pound. And I bought 1 pound of lard, and I was out of money.
Can you think of any other experiences or any experiences of others during the Depression, or maybe any indications of ways people might have helped each other or taken care of themselves during the Depression period?
Well, people were nice and neighborly. If they could help each other, they'd do it. But everything, money, especially money, you just couldn't get money anywhere. It was just like someone took a broom and swept the whole country clean.
What about the Dust Bowl? Did it hit Alva area much?
Well, it didn't hurt so bad, but when they killed the stock off, that seemed to me like uncalled for. My husband come home one day and he said, well, I've seen something I thought I'd never see. He said, I saw about 8 or 9 head of cattle just shot on a pile up here north of Captain. And they went out to our place and had nice black cow, black and white cow, and 1 or 2 others. And they were just a little thin, but they were good cows. And they condemned them and shot them.
Who condemned them? Who condemned them?
Well, the company that went through cleaning up on unnecessary animals. That cow could have lived just as well as anything else. Nice black and white.
Could you do anything like that? Did you get paid for it?
$4. $4.
What was it worth?
Oh, she probably worth $50, $60.
Did you have any alternative? Could you have refused? Could you have refused? Did you have any alternative anyway?
No, they just would come to your place and condemn certain ones. No.
Did they pretty well condemn some in all farms? Some cattle in all?
Well, yes. Nearly every place there's 1 or 2 taken. I don't know what they gained by it.
What did they think they were gaining by it?
I don't know. The pasture was there. It was up to the cow. She'd preserve her own life if they'd let her alone. No, they did a funny thing.
Well, what would have happened if you had refused? What would have happened if you had refused to let them?
I don't know. I don't know.
Did anyone challenge?
No, I never heard of anybody refusing. They just all stood like a bunch of children. When they'd come up and condemn a cow, they didn't open their mouth. I don't know why.
What about plowing under crops? During this same period they were plowing under crops, I understood.
Yeah.
Did they do any of that up here?
Well, not too much. Not too much. It didn't impress me as much as killing the cattle.
what did they explain was the reason for thinning out animals, which is what they were doing? Would they let you eat it?
I don't know. It was just the same as when they killed off the little pigs.
What about that? How that?
Yeah, they just kill the little pigs.
All the little pigs?
Yes, they just kill the little pigs. So.
Well,
I don't know who ordered them. It was some order from Washington.
Could you do anything about it? Could you? What if you do? I mean, after all, they were on your property. Did they kill your pigs?
No.
Could you have? They were on your property. Could you have ordered them off?
Well, I don't know how that. I don't know how that.
No, you know that they did.
People were tempted to, but they just stood like they's charmed. If they'd say that cow's got to be shot, she's shot.
It would look like that where there is food or where they shoot a cow, that they would let you eat it.
Yes.
But
yes.
they wouldn't?
Well, I don't know how about that. I don't know whether they could cut the best part of it out or not. I won't say. I just won't say.
Let's see, thinking in terms of the period after the Depression of World War II, what was it like up here in Alva area during the World War II period?
Well, I can't, it wasn't too bad. Wasn't too bad.
What to you, over the period that you have lived here, which has been a long time, was the most, what would you say was the outstanding experience of your life? This is maybe difficult to answer just offhand, but what offhand would you say was the outstanding experience of your life?
Well, I guess the biggest change that made in my life was coming to Oklahoma. That changed it. Otherwise, we would have gone to Pennsylvania.
You were in Nebraska before? Was it Nebraska you came from?
Yeah.
What was the contrast Nebraska as you lived there with Oklahoma? I mean, there's a tremendous
Well,
contrast.
it's kind of on the same order, only more settled and not quite so barren as this was. But when we first come out, my mother had never seen a horse lariated out. And when we got to Nebraska, some man had lariated his horse out in the sun. And my mother said, "My, that cruel man tied that horse out in the sun." Well, of course, after she came to Oklahoma, she found out that that wasn't anything at all.
What about social life in the very early period? What was it like? It was different?
They were very nice. It was very nice. There was several ladies would open their homes and give the young people a party and would serve the refreshments. And then we had literary. And to hear some of those farmers debating on the negative and positive side was fun.
What about the cultural side? Thinking in terms of music, in terms of that sort of thing, what have you had? What has developed in that area?
Well, people didn't have money, so they'd get together on Sunday afternoon and sing. That didn't cost them anything. And everybody'd go home feeling like They were just fine. And of course, my husband was a violinist, and he would play the violin. And everybody thought they had a wonderful time, and nobody spent a penny.
Was he what you called a violinist or a fiddler? In other words, did he play
called it a fiddle.
fiddle? He played the ear then.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
yes, he played the ear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The fiddle is still very popular in Oklahoma.
Yeah, yeah.
Part of the Oklahoma.
That's all the amusement they had, and the literary.
Mm-hmm.
And to hear some of those farmers get up and debate.
What were some of the topics of debate during this early period? What were some of the questions?
Well, one question was, and it never did get it settled, which is the most destructive, fire or water?
Which do you think?
They never got it decided.
What were the arguments?
Well, one would get up and say after fire passed over anything, there's nothing left. But when water passed over, they could redeem it a little bit. So,
But water will put out fire.
yeah,
And fire will boil water, I guess.
yeah.
I guess it's like the chicken and the egg, isn't it? Did they ever argue the chicken and the egg, which came first?
So what?
Did they ever argue which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Well, not that I remember.
What about the religious meetings, revival meetings, and that sort during the early
Yes, they were very religious, and about the first thing they did was organize Sunday school.
Many of the churches in the early days had circuit rider preachers or people who would...
Yes, we had a circuit rider. He would come to our place one Sunday and go out to Fair Valley, west of the White Horse, the next Sunday. And another thing we had unusual about our place out there was we had a spring of soft water. Now that was unusual in Oklahoma. It was in the side of the bank, just a little ways from our house. It was soft water.
What about, of course, a lot of people today are not hardly recognize the fact, the fact that in the early days there was no plumbing. Talk about plumbing and lighting. How you
No.
talk about
No, we just had our lamps. Just had our lamps, and very glad that we had coal on.
When did you get your first lighting here?
I don't know. I just wouldn't know the year that we got our first lights.
What about running water?
Running water, well, we didn't have it. We had a good big cistern. And the only running water it was when my boys filled the reservoir on the big home comfort range.
Did cisterns ever run dry? Did cisterns ever run dry
No,
when you watered?
no. They caught the rain, you see. Now they haul it from Alva. But we just caught the rain.
Can you think of anything else I haven't asked you about?
What?
Hey, can you think of anything else I haven't asked you about? How about your
I
children?
can't think of
You
it.
had 4 children. Talk about bringing up children in this earlier period. This was in it was after 1902. It was about before 1910.
Yeah, my children was born 1905 to 1909. Well, it was a nice time, and they had the country school. And people were just nice. And we had nice Sunday school and church there at Ashley. And we were, had nice programs.
Did they go to the college at Alva?
Yes. Yes, later on, then they came to college. My 2 daughters are graduates.
Oh. You had 4 altogether.
Yes.
Any of them still live here?
Huh?
Do any of them still live here in the area?
Yes. Leo lives here. He's Strickland out here at the airport.
Oh.
Strickland Aviation.
What have I not asked you that I ought to ask you?
Hmm?
What have I not asked you?
Well, I don't know.
This is a wonderful interview.
You've done a pretty good job.
Well, I just appreciate so much. This has been an interview in October 1972 with Mrs. I.T. Strickland.